Jesus doesn't save us from eternal torment in fire, but rather from perishing. And the gate that is wide doesn't lead to eternal suffering, but obliteration. To be, or not to be? That is the question.
Fresh, vital.
Welcome to Giant News.
The only obvious thing about this subject. Both the spirit and soul are said to depart. Using the same verb keeps them paired up. Which in this case, is to the source. The earthen vessel by contrast returns to the dirt. By referring to the body as a person, the Bible declares our bodies are as much us as we are. In the Jonah account, who, being asked to prophesy to a Gentile nation against their worship of Dagon, the fish god, and being ironically swallowed by a dagger fish, seems also now a preview clue into the Dato 1000-year dimensional ratio. Many translations have Jonah's statement at the bottom of the mountains as, "The earth with its bars was around me forever." The word in verse 6 translated as life is the word, che, the primary meaning of which is actually, age. Did Yah restore Jonah's timeline when retrieving him back into the temporal earth plane from out of a time parallax fish that he himself called actually, a conduit, to Sheol? As the man was in the garden with the Lord when informed of the promise he would die within the day of having transgressed the only law he had to follow and consumed the forbidden knowledge, that day should turn out to be roughly 1,000 years. The pristine handwriting of Yah Elohim's in Adam's genetic code, combined with Earth's pre-flood environmental conditions, allowed him to live nearly his entire spiritual lifespan in human flesh. After the 1,000-year reign of the first resurrection, the dead in Sheol are raised, judged and sent to the lake of fire to join Satan the beast and false prophet. Though it's popular to assume these are tormented night and day forever with the principalities fallen from high places. We are quickly greeted with the end of the age, where there is no longer night, rendering night and day torment no longer possible. Secondly, immortal is not the current default condition of deceased humans. That the time of torment, even for fallen angels, ends, is further bolstered by the fact that the words translated forever and ever in the corresponding verses literally mean an age and a messianic period. In Psalm 82, it would not have made sense for eternal God to tell them they would die like men, if their own mortality wasn't news to them and a question of mortality had not been a difference between them and men. All told, it's not difficult to see that the angels were designed to be immortal, but the word doesn't indicate that even the fallen angels will burn alive forever. The Sumerian king list reflects the extremely long reigns prior to Genesis 1:2, of the kings of the world that was. The word in Matthew 10, destroy, is apolumai, and means, A, I kill, destroy, B, I lose, I am perishing, the resultant death being viewed as certain. The soul perishes because it ceases to be when the spirit is removed from it. Those holding infliction of eternal suffering not befitting of a God of mercy can be relieved after all. Anyone who has had a dream that seemed real can begin to contemplate the layers of mind calling reality into existence between us and the Most Highs, whose mind calls all this and ultimate reality into being. So much so that heaven is literally defined as the place where His will is being done by the Bible. And inasmuch as eternal God is spirit, we are beginning to identify the nature of the ultimate realm. The habit of the patriarchs referring to the dead as sleeping is no longer such a trick, when simply accounting for a state where the body is disengaged and at rest and the mind remains active. This is another of the many ways ours is just a dim window of the realist reality. The prospect of how a dream state such as the one after death engages and perceives the reality of the spirit realm can only be vaguely illumined by the texts of Scripture to us here. And though it may be said that spirits possess bodies of their own by default, it is unreal how their disembodiment by something called death in humans and creatures existing out of the order escapes the natural order. Just as an amputee feels the ghost of a severed limb here in Earth, for example, the experience of a ghost feeling the ghost of the shell may again be said to be something quite similar. The potential downside seems daunting, however, of never being able to quench desires, thirst and hunger without the necessary apparatus. This, I believe, is the essential reason why the oddly awkward words Abraham's bosom were chosen to describe paradise to us. It is little wonder that Adam, whose pristine human body formed by the very hands of Yah, walked the earth for 930 years being separated from Yah Elohim and the tree of life, even until he died. Adam's progeny, who from that point outward would all start separated from God, become the mirrored image of the only one who started with him. And though still nothing they imagined to do would be impossible for them, his offspring would find the possession of dominion on a darkening gradient from fleeting and elusive to misguided and lost. Based on lust and pride with a dominion capability now wildly targeting in an impaired capacity of fallen flesh entrapped in physicality. All things now on a downward slope, as their durability began slipping due to deterioration in the new thermodynamic nature, the lifespan of natural bodies eventually began dropping around the time of Enoch and after the flood, where additional changes in the environment accelerated the spiral down to today's current maximum duration. After the reboot, things like thirst, hunger, pain, fatigue, deterioration, limitation, injury, and disease will be nothing but a memory. And the funny part is, the saved who are still alive on Earth, when the change occurs, will never have to experience death or the incomplete state, but are immediately changed to the new sensations of the new bodies. Look at the visible spectrum on an electromagnetism chart. Then imagine being able to see all of it. We can't even imagine the colors. The concept of the good and bad place has stayed popular. Is it hard to get into the good place? Is it easy? The debate over predestination and free will is a little bit funny. We can never know to what degree, if any, case by case, God's knowing the end from the beginning includes His intervention. We can say we make choices all the time, and if they seem real to us, then that's good enough, even for the judgment. Since God already knows the end from the beginning, and the complete list and makeup of the souls created to be the ultimate populace of heaven, one might have to concede predestination is a real thing. On the other hand, nothing about that says our wills can't still be free. The Bible describes us all as slaves anyway, to whatever we serve. Think of it as being free to choose what to be slaves to. But there's still a problem with free will that has nothing to do with philosophy. Christians might say the only decision that really matters is the one we make for Christ. The real problem is, we're not really the ones doing the choosing. God chooses whom He wills, and our very seeing, understanding and faithing are entirely gifts from the Most High in the first place.
Blast off for another exciting adventure in outer space with Scott McCloud, Space Angel.
Isaiah has Yahuwah declaring that what He has spoken, He will bring to pass, that which He has willed, He will do it, and all of His pleasure He will definitely do. Then, we have 2 Peter stating that God is not willing that any should perish. Does this mean that God will save everyone? The word here for reprobate is defined as failing to pass the test, unapproved, counterfeit. In this verse, this word is referring to and defining specifically the minds of they who did not like to keep God in their knowledge. What this passage is saying then is they are thereby disapproved as minds. Each fail now to pass the test of qualifying as a mind, and being counterfeit. It is simply put, not a mind. Yah stays true to His word and doing His will, for something of no mind is not a someone, and if He is not rejecting a someone, He is failing to save no one.
Whoa!
This makes everyone happy in paradise, and even those who disqualify as minds of people, God is appeasing by giving them what they wished, as in the sense of welcoming, as these did not receive the love of the truth. An interesting caveat to this is the word the KJV translates convenient in the Romans 1:28 verse means fitting or proper, as in this context would relay. I come down to being unfit, exiting the proper order of things. These are the no ones He doesn't fail to save and who are not taken to life. For those of you wondering, the Lazarus account wasn't a parable, by the way. If it was, it would be the only one with a specific person. Parables always start with hypothetical generalities like a sower, a shepherd, a vineyard keeper, 10 virgins, etc. Doing this is what makes it a parable. Making the Lazarus story the sole exception to the pattern seems to lack knowledge of how the Bible works and reverence for Yahshua's intelligence and intent. Allowing Bible to tell us what it's saying, instead of the other way around, lets us find the most interesting nuggets. A nuance in the word that refines the condition of afterlife travelers and their destination is uncovered. We've seen the paradise side of the place of the dead referred to as Abraham's bosom in the Old Testament period. From the time Yeshua's ministry while walking the earth gave the account of Lazarus, to the time in Revelation after the risen Messiah is seated at the right hand of the fathers, the passages reveal that the paradise side has been relocated, from Hades in the earth, where it was found by Lazarus beyond the fixed gulf, to the throne room of Yahweh in the third heaven. We see Revelation places the tree of life at the location of God's throne and in the midst of paradise now. So, if paradise is where the tree of life is, it is also in the location of God's throne in the third heaven, because that's where the tree is. It therefore no longer sits in the heart of the earth wherein the Lazarus episode had it previously. As the witness, this is how Yeshua was able to tell the thief, "Today you shall be with me in paradise," although he told Mary 3 days later that he had not yet ascended to the Father. Why? Because his Father was in heaven, and before his ascension, when he was having this conversation with Mary, paradise was not. Both statements were true because he had not yet left the earth, and the paradise to which he descended was still there, as opposed to where we find it in the Revelation after his ascension. Having people in paradise in the same location of the tree of life means that they in Messiah who find themselves there freely slurping its succulent fruits are now immune to the one-day 1,000-year deadline. They have access to the tree restored, a manifestation of Yahweh Elohim's direct presence, a type of the word, just like Adam and Eve had before getting themselves kicked out. This life in earth is how worship is made whole. It's part of our creation process. It is how the crowning creation comes into the fullness of free will and freedom, considering there is ultimately really only one choice. For the new creation would carry with them forever the perfect recall of being in the desolation and horror outside God's will, and would now personally and decidedly, freely and fully never desire or allow its return. With complete assent to the solitary choice that will sustain, they are part of the very fabric of where Yah's will is done, heaven. The ascended humans tried and completed or perfected by fire, is how the prophecy of Nahum will be fulfilled. By establishing the presence of sentient souls in paradise and the place of the dead throughout history, the Bible lets us know that the resurrection and catching up of the saints in Messiah is bodily. The idea of a pre-tribulation rapture makes Revelation 7:14 and Hebrews 9:28 feel a bit forced, though. In one, the Christians are already supposedly gone, and in the other, the leftovers aren't the ones waiting for him, which are the ones specifically to whom he is bringing salvation. By decoding precisely what the fine linen is, and who is wearing it, the pinpoint definition key given in Revelation 19:7 and 8 however, renders the argument moot, as it unlocks and positively identifies the armies who follow with Christ at his second coming.